How do you become an inspirational speaker, a transformative leader, make somewhere the place to be? These answers can only be passed down from one generation to the next through stories. Each story is not a step-by-step guide, but rather delivers the principles for success, or the intangibles. Tiger Tales is a Toastmasters club from Rochester, New York that started 7 years ago. Starting with its founders, this club has produced eloquent orators that have gone on to become this generation of leaders all around the world. Join us in talking with our club's cornerstones, revealing the undefined, the intangibles.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Intangibles podcast. I am one of your hosts, Xavier, and I am here with Alex Turner, the other host. Say hi.
Hey, everybody. Good to be back. Welcome back.
And he is here. And today we interviewed Rob McCartney, like Paul McCartney, and no relation.
And we're pretty sure.
We're pretty sure. We don't know for sure, I guess.
So I'm really excited for this conversation that we had with Rob. Rob was a big part of the expansion of Tiger Tales from that starting momentum that he had, that ambition to get it connected to the rest of the RIT community. And so he was connecting us with other organizations and anybody who can find a way to start working for Google and then also do classes at Facebook is really good at thinking about ways to connect really important organizations. And this is Rob's leadership style, all about connection and bringing people together. And that was a big part of what he did for our Tiger Tales group. And it was really wonderful to have this conversation and think about that moment of lift is something that Rob talks about a couple times in this conversation. So it's something that was really exciting to watch in real time, and I think it'll be really exciting to hear about.
Absolutely. It took a whole team to bring the energy to this group, but we also had to get people in the door to see it. So Rob definitely helped get us on a platform and people joining, which was excellent. He brings this energy, this fun, this connection to every interaction, and I think you'll see it here today. So let's dive in. Rob, can you tell me how you got started in Tiger Tales?
Yeah, when I started in Tiger Tales, it was kind of funny in terms of like how fast it escalated on me. I always wanted to do, Toastmasters, right? Because you always hear Toastmasters is like the premier organization. Oh, someone, go improve your public speaking, go improve your confidence. So then I figured I started my master's degree. It's kind of like a period of time that you like really focus on yourself and not like your career and things like that. It's like just having already been in the workforce, I wasn't used to having all this time to like do clubs and things like that. So I just wanted to do Toastmasters. And then I saw like a sign on campus that said like Tiger Tales. I kind of thought it was like already established, so to speak. I was like, oh, RIT must have a long-standing history of like great Toastmasters, right? Because it's a huge school. Toastmasters is like this premier organization. So I just like showed up to the first meeting, and I think it was like Halim, like myself, maybe Preeti, and there might have been like another person there. And so basically everyone that was at that meeting became like an officer. Right? So Halim was like, you're now the treasurer. And I was like, it was like my first like meeting. I was like just showing up. But so I got really thrown into the fire. But Halim was really good at that, right? Like he's like one of these people that there's certain people that you run across that, I don't know, their force of will or their vision for the future, right? It's so strong that you just want to get behind it. And I think I remember we were at, it was Java Joe's, right? Where they have like that place on campus. I think we were sitting there when it happened. Yeah, I really remember just being shocked, like, okay, I'm the treasurer. What does that, mean? What do I do for that? It wasn't long, after becoming like this default officer, getting more and more involved with the club. I believe, Alex could probably correct me since Alex was there for all of this, but I think I became the president after Halim.
Yeah, you were the second president after Halim because it was going to be Preeti, but she was actually the vice president of education for 2 terms in a row. We never told her that was the hardest job, And we just let her do it for a whole year.
Preeti was too important as the vice president for education to like move her from that spot. I don't know if we said that, like the year term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. I remember now. Right. So she was like just doing such great stuff.
Yeah.
This linchpin of, while Halim, was really like that vision person, right? Preeti was the made the trains run on time.
Yeah.
And you need to have both, I think, to get an organization off the ground. So we kept her in there, and then I became the second president after Halim. Quite a novice Toastmaster to become president, but that's kind of, I guess, the beauty of being like early in an organization, right? Which is, actually Xavier was talking before we started recording about startup worlds, and I'm in the Bay Area, so there's a lot of that out here too. And, that is part of that whole journey, right? Like when you start something new, you stretch, and you could be in positions that you feel unqualified for, or that you feel like you haven't had like tons and tons of preparation for. But then, oftentimes that's when you grow the most. When things work out, that's when they're, can become just these really like incredible moments, right? We had like this new group of officers, and none of us really had done these jobs before, and we just kind of put all of our energy into it, and something special happened. Yeah. And the club really just started growing and growing and growing. Again, like Preeti was there driving a lot of this, but I remember for like those four of us in that first like meeting, within a few, I don't remember exactly the timeline, but within a few weeks, or maybe a semester or two, it was all blur. We're also balancing like schoolwork and all this stuff, but it was like we're talking about maybe needing 2 meetings with like 30 people. We're like, no one's getting a chance to talk.
Yeah, especially after you had arranged like a joint CLCE Tiger Tails speech contest. That event filled the entire, like that science auditorium that is just like a pit.
That was my favorite moments, I think, at RIT. Yeah, we had like this whole stadium filled, and everyone was just there watching speeches and stuff. We also had this unfair advantage of the RIT community. I don't think you could go to any kind of typical Toastmasters club and get one speech on like growing up in Afghanistan, and then like another speech on like the work you're doing in Honduras, and then like another speech on rural West Virginia. Mm-hmm. The amount of perspectives and stories and creativity that we had, people want to go to the stadium and hear these stories from their fellow classmates, and you just got such incredible perspectives in like a 2-hour window. I do want to add, I feel like Arlene Brown is a very close personal friend of mine, and she has no idea who I am. And this is mostly because of our mentor, Corey Wilson, who I think we all know speaks extremely highly of Arlene Brown, and not only that, he includes her in many of his speeches about how she inspired him. He's one of the reasons that I tried to follow in his footsteps. I started off when I introduced Corey with a joke about how me and Arlene were best friends, but I actually do think that is really, under the surface, a really powerful thought, that through Toastmasters, through this organization, and through the mentors and the people that care, you can have this wider and wider and wider funnel of impact in ways that you don't even know, people you don't know, that you never talk to, because as you help others and you spread, they spread that message, and it's just exponential. And it would be hard to replicate that without some of the advantages of the RIT diversity and community that we had.
Now, can you give me some of the backstory of how that CLCE joint Tiger Tails contest got set up?
I remember at the time we were like talking to like a lot of clubs, how we could kind of get established. I remember there was this person like Tegan, and he's on my LinkedIn now. He's like started some other companies. He was also like, what was that? It was called the Society of Leadership and Success or something.
Yeah. So there was like the Center for Leadership and Civic Engagement was CLCE, but that was like under the umbrella of something like that. Yeah. A lot of acronyms being thrown around.
Exactly. Because I remember we were talking to them initially. Somehow that club fell underneath an actual full-time RIT department, like that had like funding. What was her name? There was and I'm blanking now, but there was a professor. She at the time she was working as part of that leadership's full-time at RIT. They had like this department focused on like student engagement and leadership and development.
Yeah.
And club was underneath them. and I'm blanking her name, but she went on to become like I've seen her like as a professor at the RIT Business School now. But at the time, she was doing this other department. And so by talking to that club, they brought us over to them. And she, we got to like meet her and like Halim, myself, Preeti, and like they thought what we were doing was like really cool. And then they ended up, putting kind of some money towards it so we could do like flyers and posters around campus. And then the fact that we had this other student organization that was involved, they had some of that kind of boots on the ground. Like they were really good at growing and like marketing and all of these things. Because what they did was like they brought like speakers to campus, right? So they would bring speakers to campus that were like a little bit more, well-known global or nationwide speakers. And they would give a talk on campus, stuff like that. And like they had their students complete various pathways to become levels of leadership and success. There's definitely a lot of overlap. I think Toastmasters is a little bit more like get your hands dirty, right? It's not just passive learning. Like I think you can kind of hide a little bit behind the like, oh, I went and saw a great speaker, right? But like, how did you kind of stretch yourself today, right?
Yeah.
How did you get out of your comfort zone? We brought that to them, and then they brought to us some of their like knowledge and marketing, and they were way closer tied in with the administration of RIT and had like the money, like I said. And so we kind of did it as a joint thing with them, and everyone got really excited about it. We started, postering everywhere, getting the word out. Everyone brought their friends. I remember there was like some class before. I don't know. As I think about it now, I'm like remembering all these moments, and they seem like really minor now. But at the time, it was like pending disasters, right? Like, like the class before us ran long, or like we didn't have whatever we were supposed to have, or like I don't know, like we had to project, we didn't have our microphone, or various like little things now. And in hindsight, they don't matter at all. It was more about the group that we got together and like the the excitement that was behind it. It was going to turn into this really incredible event, and that was one of my favorite. I hadn't thought about that in a while, but that was one of like the coolest things I think I did at RIT.
That was a really cool night. I'm remembering what you were talking about with the class before running long, that it was like, I think it was a test, and there were like 3 people down there like still scribbling out their answers, like, finish your test, we need to get this set up.
40 people behind me like trying to come into this, and there's like 3 of you want your A on this class, right? It must have been, was that towards the end of the semester? I for whatever reason, I feel like it was this time of year, maybe like kind of cold outside, like end of the semester. Yeah. Which is nice. We all like snuggled up and got cozy and warm inside this auditorium and talked for hours. Yeah, some of those speeches just like floored me. There was like people that had joined Tiger Tails not even 3 months before, right? Like they'd been there probably from the start of the semester. And Alex is probably thinking of the same people I'm thinking of. But like there were people that when they started, like their first Toastmaster speech was like a slow read of like a sheet of paper, like head down, stumbling over words, nervous. And that was in front of like 12 people, right? Inside like normal Toastmasters meeting. And then at this thing, there was like strangers in the audience that weren't part of Toastmasters, right? There was like however many 50 or 80 people in an auditorium owning the whole stage, like projecting their voice, providing, vocal range, like this dramatic emotional performance. And you're like, is this the same person? That was like the clearest vision of how quickly you can like change and like grow with like dedicated practice and like focus on yourself, and with the help of mentoring and friends and a community. Never seen such fast transformation. That was where you like saw it happen. You're like, wow. That's why I think that's why it's so memorable for me. Yeah, just the factor of going from, like you were saying, that first speech where you're, doing what most novice speakers would do, to being in like this Colosseum. And it really is intimidating to be looking up at your audience and like having them, they're like looking down on you, and having, like you're saying, like 80 people, most of them you don't know, and they're all looking at you. And to have those folks get up there and really give excellent speeches. Even some brand new folks that hadn't even been to the club, that were just from the RIT community, coming up and being a part of that and then joining the club. That was a really good night. I forgot about that there were some people that we had like never seen before, and they had just signed up because of the posters saying like, hey, we're doing this speech competition. I was just blown away by some of the like talent that was like, you know, sitting in the RIT community. And they came out, and you were just like, man, this is such an incredible place.
Yeah, and then it feels like if you're trying to make somewhere the place to be, like Tiger Tales has become, this idea of people starting at fairly unconfidently speaking, you know, reading a sheet of paper, to something like that. That is something that I think we all desire, you know, public speaking being such a huge fear.
It's incredible how quickly you can get there. Like with the effort, these people I'm talking about, like definitely kind of showed up week after week, and they put in their reps and they put in their time and practice, but they also had fun doing it, and they had mentors that were guiding them, and they could show up and kind of get away from, you know, whatever coursework or research and things that were happening, and they kind of gave themselves to this, you know, hour a week, a couple hours a week that they were devoting to it. And it's incredible how, if you just commit to that, right? Like if you say, okay, this is like a goal of mine, like you can get there so fast, but you know, with the right level of commitment and mentoring. I've had other goals in life that have just like floundered, and you're just like, have I just not grown at this for a year and a half, right? Like, how am I still barely past the starting line of whatever goals I've had personally? When you devote yourself to it and have the right people there to help you and guide you, how quickly you can really transform. And that's a good thing that I need to remind myself sometimes, because you just feel stuck, you know. Sometimes you're like stuck in this rut, and it's like, okay, hey, how do I get the right person to help me here, the right guidance and the right community support? Like I can get where I want to be like really fast.
Hope you guys all enjoyed. Join us for our next week, where Rob talks about how we turned broccoli into ice cream. Pretty magical, right? See you next time.
To San Francisco, time will be a loving there. In the streets of San Francisco.